Hey everybody, it's Meredith Miller with Inner Integration, and today the message I want to bring to you is about self-sabotage, how you might be getting in your own way. Self-sabotage is essentially a part of the PTSD. It's like a defense mechanism that takes place, and if you have the kind of PTSD that came about through abuse, probably what happened in childhood or during a recent relationship was you got accustomed to not being able to be successful, right? So anytime you were going to be successful, anytime you were going to have to do something really big, like, maybe you were a kid and it was like the spelling bee, or it was like a baseball game or a swimming match or whatever it was, something that really meant something to you, maybe right before you were about to go do that thing, your narcissistic or alcoholic or addict parent sabotaged it for you. Maybe like they actually destroyed your chances of doing it, or they wouldn't give you a ride there, or they wouldn't get you something that you needed for it, or maybe they provided all of that and seemingly they were very supportive, but then at the last minute they planted in your head some seed of doubt that was tainted with cruelty, with criticism, with the message of you can't do it, or you're not enough, or I'll love you even if you can't do it, that sort of thing. And that's the more covert side of that sort of abuse. So one way or another, you learned to sabotage yourself. It's how the abuser gets the target to abuse his or herself, right? And so essentially you learn to abuse yourself by sabotaging your efforts. So today I want to talk about the 5 most common ways that I see people self-sabotaging, things I've seen in myself as well. I'm going to give you some mantras and some tools to overcome these forms of self-sabotage. I'm also going to describe what they're like so you can see how it might relate to your life. The very first kind is not standing up for yourself, not speaking up for yourself when you need to. Maybe you don't even know how. Maybe it's been so deeply conditioned and ingrained in you that you don't even know how to stand up for yourself, that you don't even know where to put the line or how to set the line, or maybe even internally you don't know how to identify, hey, this isn't okay for me. This is not okay for me. Maybe you lack that internal mechanism. Maybe you're afraid to ask questions for clarification. Maybe somebody speaks to you ambiguously. And it could have a double entendre, which, a lot of narcissists like to use double entendres to confuse you, something with a double meaning, and then it's like, well, did you mean that or did you mean that? And maybe every time you hear those sorts of things, you just give the person the benefit of the doubt, you don't really look into it, you don't ask questions to clarify the ambiguity, which could just be as simple as asking the question, so what did you mean by da 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 da? And repeat their words and see what they say. Maybe it was just genuine and you misunderstood and they didn't explain it well and there was a misunderstanding, and then you clear it up and it's okay. Or maybe by asking that question, you start to unravel that they're purposefully disguising their true intent in what they're saying. Maybe you're hanging out with somebody. It could be a friend, it could be a new lover, it could be someone in your family, it could be a boss, a coworker, whatever, and you feel like you can't really be yourself around that person. And you either have to dim yourself in some way, or you have to play it small, or you can't express your opinions because you're going to be attacked for that, or you're just simply not even allowed to express those opinions. And maybe you feel like you can only be a certain percentage of who you are. And maybe the other person's like, well, 99% of you is okay, but that 1%, you're going to have to put that in a box. You can't bring that out to play when we're hanging out. And you're like, well, that opinion about that 1%, that's a big deal to me. Like, I'm a 100% kind of person. I'm either all in or I'm not in at all. I'm not like going to pretend to be part of myself in this relationship or this job or this family or whatever. So that's a big sign something's not right. And if you don't stand up for yourself and speak up for yourself, you're just going to keep going into that relationship. And that's a form of self-sabotage, because you are not speaking up with your truth. You're not standing up for yourself. You're not even believing maybe that you have the right to do that. Maybe you don't believe that you have the right to respect. Maybe you don't believe you have the right to be loved. Maybe you don't believe you have the right to get that raise. Maybe you don't believe that you have the right to express your opinions, and to disagree with another person is fine, right? It's okay not to agree, but just to be able to express your opinion and the other person express their opinion, maybe you don't even believe you have the right to do that. Another big area where I recognized in myself the pattern of self-sabotage about not standing up or speaking up for myself, and that I see in other people, is around your agenda, protecting your agenda. So for example, running your own business, right? Maybe you run your own business, you don't work for the man, you don't work in a cubicle, you don't have a 9-to-5, you work at home. So it's your schedule, it's your time, it's your life by design. And maybe you have a friend or a family member or someone else who thinks, well, just because you're not, at an actual job, that you're at home and you're working and you're on your time, that they could just interrupt you all the time to do things that they want you to do, or just to be there to answer their calls all the time, or that sort of thing, or answer their emergencies all the time, and you have stuff to do, but because it's your business and you're like, well, yeah, I guess I can just drop all this stuff that I really need to do for myself and for my business and help them. And then you just keep doing that and you become a martyr, and then you don't get your projects done, your business isn't successful, you're not helping people, you're not supporting yourself. Another situation of this that I hear a lot is stay-at-home moms. Okay, mamas, maybe papas, right? You're at home, you got your kids at home, and maybe your neighbor or your friend or your whomever assumes that just because you're at home taking care of your kids, that you can just do whatever for them. Like maybe they just try to dump their kids on you all the time, or they're like, well, if you're going to be at home, maybe you can do this for me and you can do that for me. And you start to feel like, well, okay, I guess because I am at home and I'm just going to be here every day, so but then you end up becoming a martyr, and then you end up not doing the things that you want to do with your kids, you end up not taking care of your kids in the way that you want to, and then you end up sacrificing your own self-care, which there's probably small enough window of time for you to do that if you're raising 2 or 3 little kids anyways, right? And you end up playing the martyr. You have self-sabotaged your own agenda by not setting those boundaries and saying, no, this isn't okay for me. Just because I'm a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad doesn't mean that, it's wide open for me to resolve all your problems and, handle all your things, or just always be watching your kids because you have something else to do. Maybe it's just some project or something that you like to do that someone is always interrupting. Whatever that is, protect your agenda. Be disciplined about that. Stand up and say no, because that's going to protect your life. That is how you protect your freedom. The more discipline you have in your agenda, the more discipline you have in managing the boundaries around your agenda and what you need to do, the more freedom you will create in your life. My coach, who's one of Brendan Burchard's trained certified coaches, says, and I can't remember where this actually came from, but somebody said along the way that successful people say no 80% of the time. This is the power of saying no. It's standing up for yourself, it's speaking up for yourself, it's drawing that line and saying no so you can protect your freedom and your peace. So I have a mantra for this, and the mantra that I like to use, now of course each one of these mantras that I'm going to give you, it's just as like say a starting point, right? Maybe you don't like the wording, or you kind of see where I'm going with that and you want to create your own mantra out of it. Fantastic, do that. Put your own touch on this. This is just my basic explanation of how to override these belief systems. So the mantra for this one is, I decide what's okay for me. I have the right to say no. I decide what's okay for me, and I have the right to say no. The second biggest form of self-sabotage that I see is feeling sorry for yourself. This is the self-pity, the poor me. And I see this coming from a couple areas. One is the past. Well, I'll never be successful, or I'll never be able to do that because of what happened to me in the past. Or people saying it because of their current life circumstances. Well, I'll never be able to do that because, this is where I'm at right now. Don't let your current circumstances and your past dictate your future. You can change your life. Maybe you don't believe it right now, but a little over a year ago, I was barely surviving, okay? If I had kept myself in that belief system and I had kept self-sabotaging myself, I wouldn't be doing this right now. I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't be creating the life that I desire to live, helping other people, supporting myself, and enjoying the peace and the freedom of my life. You know, maybe you look at me, or maybe you look at someone else and you're like, well, I can never be like them because of this and that and the other. And you just name whatever excuses. And those are all just excuses. And those are all just ways of holding yourself back because you don't believe in you. You don't believe that you deserve it. You don't believe you deserve to live the life that you want. Now, of course, no one's going to hand that to you. You have to work to get that. You know, a lot of times too, I hear people say things like, well, you know, it's just easier for other people because, you know, they have friends or they have family or they have whatever who supports them, and I'm all alone, and I'm never going to be able to do whatever, or I'm never going to be able to feel whatever because I'm all alone. Again, that person is allowing themselves to self-sabotage based on current life situations, based on those circumstances and the conditioning from the past. That is a choice. You can change your life by deciding so. Essentially, this one is about wallowing in the self-pity, and it comes from the learned helplessness from the abuse. That's part of the PTSD, and you can overcome it. Brendon Burchard also says, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start somewhere in order to be great. And I think that's fantastic. Whatever it is you want to do in life, maybe you want to play a musical instrument, maybe you want to sing, maybe you want to be some sort of artist, maybe you want to be an engineer or an architect or a mathematician, whatever it is, you're going to have to work towards it, and you have to start somewhere, no matter where you are. So the mantra I have for you for this particular form of self-sabotage is, I can create the life I desire. My past and present circumstances do not define me. I can create the life I desire. My past and present circumstances do not define me. Carl Jung also has a fantastic quote. He said something like, I am not what happened to me. I am who I choose to become. The third form of self-sabotage that I've seen in myself and other people is giving up at the last minute. It's like you're so close and you worked and you worked and you worked, and at the last minute you throw it all away. Maybe you manifest an injury or you suddenly get sick. And I know that can just look like a random coincidence, but it's probably not. Even things like your car breaking down. Sometimes these sorts of things happen because we're not supposed to do something. And usually it's not clear in the moment why things happen. Usually we have to move forward a bit in life. And then with retrospect, which is 2020, we're able to see the big picture. Okay, I can see exactly why that happened. I wasn't supposed to go there because of that. But oftentimes it's a form of self-sabotage, injuries, sickness. This is a form of acting in the anger, acting in the rage, acting in all the pain, all the suffering. Instead of expressing it outward, some people manifest it inward. Maybe right before you're about to go to tennis camp as a kid, you know, you manifest a knee injury, so you can't go. Or maybe like right before the championship of something, you get like the worst flu ever and you can't go. Or, you know, maybe like you're about to go drive to this awesome thing that you've been working towards for so long, and your car breaks down and you have no money and you can't get there. And these could all be forms of self-sabotage. It could also be like maybe you just cancel at the last minute. Maybe you have a date or you have a performance or something. At the last minute, you just panic and you cancel, or you don't even call, you just no show because you're in the total state of panic. That's also a form of self-sabotage. Maybe you convince yourself that you don't have the energy to do it. Maybe you convince yourself you're not good enough, or you're just too tired, or it's not going to be good enough, or, oh, well, you know, that sort of thinking. And then you just don't do it. You just give up. A form of self-sabotage. Maybe you don't apply for the job to get into the school. Maybe you don't even accept the date. Maybe you don't apply for a grant or a scholarship or something like this, simply because you sabotage yourself at the last minute. Maybe you read up about this and you researched it and you're like, oh, that would be amazing. I want to go to that school. I want to work at that company. I want to do this. And at the last minute, you just don't apply. Maybe it's even a contest that you want to enter. and you're like, oh, that would just be so perfect for me, and at the last minute you just don't even apply because you convince yourself that you're not good enough. So the mantra for this form of self-sabotage is, I will be victorious. I am worthy of the success. I am the one I've been waiting for. That last part is particularly relevant if you're the kind of person who self-sabotages at the last minute, hoping that someone else will save you, or that someone else will see you and recognize your talents or your potential and literally just scoop you off the street and give you like your dream job kind of thing. I am the one I've been waiting for. I will be victorious. I am worthy of the success. Run that through your head over and over again so you stop creating excuses and reasons and other weird things that happen in your life because you don't believe you're worthy of the success, whatever that is that's stopping you at the last minute. The fourth form of self-sabotage is you are your worst enemy. This is predominantly in the self-talk, and you will hear this like, I'm not good enough, I can't do that, I'm not smart enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not tall enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not whatever enough, I don't deserve that, no one will ever love me, right? You are your worst enemy. Now, of course, you learned this somewhere. Someone trained that into your brain. They literally programmed your brain with criticism, with cruelty, with all of these false belief systems about what's not possible and what you can't do, and all this form of self-doubt. And you can go on through life justifying that, just like I mentioned earlier, based on your past or your present circumstances, or you could make the decision to change your life, to stop self-sabotaging through your own self-talk. You have control over that, and only you. Yes, someone trained all that into you, but now you can train that out of your self-talk. You might notice this when things are going really well in your life. Like maybe like you've worked a lot in your self-talk, but like there's this one thing, and it's suddenly when things are going really well. Like your work is going really well, your relationship is going really well, something's going really well in your life, and you panic and you start to overthink and you get stuck in this analysis paralysis, and you're just trying to come up with a reason to sabotage this because it can't possibly be that good, right? Where is that even coming from? That's coming from a belief system that you're not good enough, that you don't deserve it. Maybe you find yourself like when everything's going good and nothing's even wrong, you find yourself you're just like unhappy or moody. Again, it's a form of self-sabotage, and it's coming from this belief that you're not good enough. Maybe you do this by worrying too much what other people think. Maybe you want to control how they see you. You can't control how people see you. You can walk into a room of 100 people. There will probably be 100 different perspectives of who you are, and not one of those will actually define who you are, because that comes from inside you. You've got to give yourself permission to be who you are. You've got to validate yourself. You've got to prove yourself, and stop worrying about what other people think, because when you are living in authenticity and alignment with your true self, you will just attract your tribe. You will attract the people who resonate with that, and you will repel people who don't. Maybe you're your worst enemy through procrastination. You know, you put it off, you put it off, you put it off, you just never do it. Like, you know, you just got to take this action, and you can start to create your own business online, and you can quit working for that psychopath surrounded by all his or her flying monkeys at work, or finding another psychopath job, or just keep selling your soul to another company or another boss. It's whatever it is that you just don't believe in. You want the freedom in your life. You know you have something to offer. You know you just need to take the action and do the work, but you're putting it off. Why? Why are you procrastinating? Usually when we procrastinate something, it's because it doesn't matter to us. It's not important to us. There's something there in the way. What's in the way there? Maybe it's very important to you to create that kind of freedom in your life. Maybe it's important to you to carry out this mission and this purpose that you just feel burning in your heart, but maybe there's something else in the way. Maybe there's something telling you that you don't deserve that you should just put your head down like, you know, most people, and just go work at the cubicle and just plug away and just put up with it and just let them abuse you, and not take that leap because it's scary. It is scary, right? So what are you procrastinating? Are you getting in your own way by procrastinating? Ask yourself, does that really matter to you? Is that really important to you? And if it is, you got to take action. Figure out what's in the way. What's blocking you in the way? Or maybe you realize, you know what, that's not what I want. Like that job that I've been chasing and chasing and chasing after, but then I just put it off, and then I just don't really apply, or I just don't really take some kind of action. Maybe part of you just really isn't in that. Maybe part of you really isn't aligned with that, and there's something there that you don't want to be in your life, and that's why you're procrastinating on it. But oftentimes it's some form of self-sabotage where you just don't believe that you're worthy of it. So the mantra that I have for you for this one, when you're your worst enemy, is I am worthy of good things. I am worthy of happiness. Of course, again, you can modify these mantras to meet your own needs, but just as a basic idea to help guide you. The fifth form of self-sabotage is when the going gets tough, you do the worst possible thing. It's like making the worst decision when things are bad. So one example is fear, okay? Fear can make anybody feel paralyzed. Fear on top of PTSD is like total panic. It's like, right? You can't even catch your breath. You might even feel like you're gonna die. There's so much panic there. And what I noticed in myself and what I've noticed in other people is this is where the self-sabotage mechanism kicks in, where, say for example, you're feeling all this fear. Maybe then you just go turn on the news and you watch a bunch of fear porn, and you feed and you feed and you feed that fear, right? Or maybe for you, it's some form of addiction. And maybe when you feel lonely, maybe that's your trigger. When you feel really lonely, instead of finding some way to connect with yourself, maybe through meditation, through yoga, just simple stretching or dance, just reflecting within yourself, or instead of going out into nature and connecting with the universe, or going to church, or going to a spiritual event, or calling up a friend and just feeling connected between humans, or snuggling a dog or some other animal and just feeling that sense of connection. Maybe when you feel loneliness, you turn to alcohol, you turn to drugs, you turn to gambling, you turn to food, you turn to sex, something that stuffs it away through the addiction versus actually being present with the feelings that are coming up and leaning into the discomfort of that loneliness, learning to meet that connection need for yourself. Maybe it comes in the form of panic. So maybe when you get into that panic, something happened, something went wrong, and you go into this total panic, and then you just make the worst impulsive decision, and then later you regret it, right? I've noticed that myself. It's like every time the panic comes on, you just need to slow down and breathe for a second and really evaluate the situation, and then make a decision and take action. Because if you make that impulsive decision, it's probably going to be a bad decision that you're probably going to regret later. So the mantra that I have for this form of self-sabotage is everything is going to be all right. I am taking action toward my growth. Everything is going to be all right. I'm taking action that supports my growth. So these are the 5 main forms of self-sabotage that I have seen both within myself and other people when recovering after narcissistic abuse. One very basic form of advice that I would apply is to be honest with yourself. And this goes for everything. This is a big part of your healing, is how honest are you being with yourself? How honest are you being about your feelings? How much are you checking in with yourself? How do you feel right now? Where is that feeling coming from? Where is that emotion coming from? And really taking an honest look. It's painful sometimes to look at those things that we don't want to see, especially when we can't blame someone else, when the only person we have to put that responsibility on is ourselves, right? Sometimes we just don't want to look at that. Sometimes it's also really helpful to speak it aloud to someone else. Maybe you don't have a friend or someone that you really, really trust. Maybe you can't share that with them. Use the mirror. Talk to yourself. Saying the words out loud, it's almost like you take away the power from it. Because as soon as the words come out, all that power that was in the fear and in the hiding and the holding and the shame of that inside, when you say it, it kind of just starts to transmute. And suddenly it starts to lose that power, and it starts to lose that emotional charge. And even more if you have that supportive person who's listening and telling you, everything's okay, honey. Everything's gonna be all right. There's no need to worry about that. Here's a suggestion. right? It can be really helpful. So if you find yourself having a lot of challenges with self-sabotage, particularly because of what's going on in your mind, all the self-talk, the way you talk yourself out of things, the way you tell yourself you're not good enough, you don't deserve it, you're not worthy of it, the flashbacks that are coming from the past reminding you of that, I highly recommend checking out the little mini course that I have. It's called Reprogramming Flashbacks and Self-Talk. It's only $5. It comes with the Self-Care Mastery course. So if you have that, it's part of the bonuses that comes with it, or you can just get it separately. It's totally worth it. I teach you about the 3 different kinds of flashbacks and self-talk, because there are 3 different kinds, 3 different themes that I have noticed in a slightly different way that I've created to reprogram those, to override those, and to create new belief systems, because this is huge. This is a big part of the recovery, is how you train your mind after the abuse. It is psychological abuse. You have been brainwashed, you have been mind screwed, and now you want to reprogram your mind so that you can create the life that you desire, so that you can enjoy and know that you are worthy of success and happiness in life. I'm sending you a big hug.